Let's start by building a grid. So on the screen, I've already made an example for us to look at. It's going to be 4 bays wide by 3 bays deep. Notice that we're looking at level 1, which could also be called the first floor. We're looking down at it. This is a floor plan view of what we're going to construct. And this is going to be used as a tool to help us align our walls and place our steel columns especially. Our grids are going to be spaced at 20 foot by 20 feet. That's just a dimension that I came up with for this module. It's a nice generous space to have what's called a clear span to walk through. And each space is, by being 20 foot by 20 feet, is defining 400 square feet. So we have a relatively large, or what I guess I would say a medium-sized building that we're constructing. Also note how the grid is sitting within the elevation markers, so that anytime we take a view of our building that we're going to construct here, the elevation markers are far enough back. Think of them just as a camera so they can catch the whole view of the building. So let's go ahead and get started with a fresh document. So what I'm going to do is close this one off, and I'm going to open up a new file. I'm going to go to architectural template and not a construction template. That'll open up some special functionality that we'll use in our project. And I want to make sure that it's a project and not a project template. I'm going to click OK, and here we are ready to get started. Briefly before we get started, I want to show you the idea of this docking of the project browser again. Your interface may look different, and I'm going to click on the top bar of that and drag this one over kind of to where it would normally be found. If you were sitting down at another computer, let's say a lab computer, and you'll notice how the properties palette you can't see all of it because the project browser palette is hiding that. And that's why I strongly encourage you to grab this palette if it isn't there already, and drag it over and dock it here. And that allows us to see all of the other things that are in the properties palette here. Okay, so now we're ready to start drawing our grid system. Make sure that we're under the architecture tab, and you'll notice that we have this grid tool here. Once I click it, the screen will turn green, indicating we're in the editing mode, and it'll show that we've selected a line tool because we're going to make grid lines that are straight lines. Once again, we want to work inside of this elevation ticks that we have all around here. So I'm going to start at the bottom and make our first grid line. I'm going to click and unclick it and then drag it across and stop it. And then I'm going to come back and start another one. Notice that I'm using the blue line to make sure I'm lined up over the start of the other one. And I'm just going to move this up until it says 20 feet. Click and drag it over. Now, if I come up here and I can't easily get that 20 feet, I can just type in 20 and hit enter, and that'll automatically snap it to that point, and then I can finish drawing. So it's up to you on how you want to be able to put those in. Another way to get more precise locating, so now we have our 3 bays deep. We want to draw our 4 bays across, and I'll show you how to get that more precise locating. So I'm going to draw the next grid line going vertical. And then before I start drawing this one, I'm going to actually zoom in. And you'll notice now, if you're working with the mouse, it'll get much easier to find that 20 feet. Only problem is you may have to zoom in and out a little bit. I zoomed in, just to make sure that you understand, I zoomed in by using the center scroll button on the mouse. So I'm going to keep constructing here. And we'll put our final bay in. Whoops, I made a little mistake there, so I'm going to go Control Z and draw that again. Now you'll notice how some of the marker lines seem like they're a little sloppy here. These are coming out a little far. So the easy way to correct that is to just click on one of them, select one of them, and then come over where that little round button is, and then you can pull these in to kind of trim them off on the grid. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. So I'll grab up on this little button and I'll pull that in. And now you'll notice also that our grid isn't sitting exactly where it was shown in the first example I showed you. So one of the ways to correct that is to just draw a box over the whole thing. So I'm going to grab the whole, click and drag over the whole thing, select it, and then click anywhere where I grab an object and I can physically move it and kind of just eyeball it into position. So now we've constructed the floor plan or the plan grid view. The next we're going to look at is creating the elevation view levels for our project.